Welcome to Blend's Localization Leaders series, where we interview industry leaders who are paving the way for advances in localization through their work. In this episode, we're joined by Subway's Globalization Services Manager, Carrie Fischer. Subway is an American multinational fast food restaurant franchise that specializes in subs, wraps, salads, and drinks. Hi, Carrie. It's so nice to meet you. Welcome to the Localization Leader series, and I'm so happy that we could have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So, can you start by telling us about your career path and how you ended up in your current position as Subway's Globalization Services Manager?
Sure. So like many of us in the industry, the opportunity to localize wasn't really planned. My first job out of college was at Transparent Language in New Hampshire, and we sold language learning software and decided to take that product global. So people who wanted to learn English. The question of who's going to get the UI box and docs translated was asked, and I raised my hand. That was 30 years ago.
Wow.
So I know. I went from Transparent Language to Hyperion Solutions in Connecticut, which was bought by Oracle in California. So I moved to California. Then I went to bodybuilding.com here in Idaho to my current position at Subway. And each company gave me a very different localization experience.
Wow. Were you dealing with that kind of the technical aspects of localization in each, or it really was a variation of like touching all the sides of localization?
Yeah, well, so that's a good question. We had like an engineering department, so I didn't touch that side of it for the first few career moves. But here at Subway, it's a bit of everything.
Awesome. Cool. So then that's a good segue to talk a little bit more about localization at Subway. So what role does localization play at Subway, and how is your team or department, how are you guys structured?
Localization is essential at Subway. Being the largest quick serve restaurant chain in the world, we've got 37,000 restaurants worldwide in over 100 countries. So I couldn't imagine it not being essential. But I'm I'm one of the few localization departments that is an army of one. So even though I report up through the operations department, I'm a centralized function within Subway, which means I work with all departments in regions to help them get their content translated. I'm the one that helps them create their localization strategy. I help them get their content translated. If there's anything that needs to be done before translation starts, the true localization piece, I help with that too. So I wear all the hats.
Wow, that's amazing. It's so impressive for such a big operation. That's awesome. Okay, so like you said, localization in the very beginnings was, well, let's say it feels fairly new. And so to this day, many localization employees tend to struggle with gaining budget and just a general recognition of localization's importance, especially when times of difficult economy and strained budgets. I feel like localization is one of the things that can get kind of cut to the side. So do you have any tips for localization managers that are looking to demonstrate the value of localization?
Yeah, I mean, I remember those days very well. And I think even today's local managers have the additional burden of explaining to upper management, why we can't use MT or, AI,
Right.
generative AI, and be done with it, right? So I employed a few tactics, and I know others have as well. The first one I did was at my second job at Hyperion. I gathered upper management in one room to explain the importance of localization, but I spoke a different language. So, and this was in '98, and I have a degree in French. So I gathered the gang and I started my presentation off in French. And
Wow.
luckily, there was one native speaker of French in that room who just started laughing at the confusion of his fellow coworkers. I didn't say a lot, right, but enough to get their attention. And then I stopped
Yeah,
and I said, "Now, how do you think our customers in France, Germany, and Japan feel when we give them our software and user guide in English and expect them to get by?" So it
that is
worked.
brilliant. I love
Other
that.
people have done this as well, and it works.
Wow. I've
And
never
it's
heard that. I
but the
love
tactic
that.
is tricky. You have to know your audience.
Yeah.
You don't want to come off as a smart ass. Um, and I think maybe a more practical approach, which I also did later on, is to really be open and transparent with costs versus benefits. Um,
Hmm.
do your homework, do your calculation of ROI, return on investment. I partnered with the finance department, the CFO, really, to show the value because you have a big budget or what looks like a big budget. But when you look at, how much money you're getting, in all these different markets, you tend to come to the attention of upper management. And so the CFO called me into his office one day and said, "What are you spending the money on?" He was open and honest, and I was too. And once we started that relationship, it was a yearly get together of how we're doing in
Nice.
each market, how much I was expecting to spend. It was a great partnership. And once you have that ally, they can really communicate the importance to the other executives and all the teams.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. And so, what piece of advice do you have for those working in localization? And like besides this, what any other advice that you might have for those working in localization or someone that's maybe interested in entering the field?
I think it's a difficult industry to enter because we put up a lot of barriers for um, new time people, new
Mm,
people, because we sometimes insist, we always insist, I think, on, having 2 to 3 years experience. But
right.
how is a student or someone new to localization supposed to get that? So until we as an industry change that attitude, I would point people to internships, hopefully paid,
Yeah.
getting a mentor, which is free. And of course, I'm going to plug Women in Localization's website. We have Mentor Ease, or one of our partners like Global Sake. They have a good mentorship program. A mentor is going to get you connected to the right people, as well as help you figure out how you to navigate your career. Um, Women in Localization put on an event very recently, October 26th, and it was, I think, titled "Marketing for Freelance Translators." Um, and it was really for new people as well as experienced.
Mm,
Allison Toon put together a list of resources, excellent resources, really a gold mine for people trying to enter the field. I don't know if it's up on our website yet, but if you're a member, you can download it for free or watch it for free and get all those resources. But, I encourage attending webinars that LSPs put on. They're free.
yeah.
Even if you don't understand everything that's happening or going on, you have to get yourself immersed in the industry.
Yeah, and at least today there are resources out there, like you said, even just reaching out to people on LinkedIn and things like that. If you can't get a ticket to a big industry event, and like thankfully there are ways to kind of get connected. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's great advice. Um, Jumping back to Subway, what would you say is Subway's greatest localization strength?
Well, if I could take this down to the true definition of localization, which is adapting a product to a local market to make it feel like it was created for that market, Subway does that very well. The international teams that decide what countries to open restaurants in, what regions, what areas. Um, they also have to think about the products that resonate with that target market. So if you look at our
Hmm.
website in Japan, for example, we show prawn and avocado sandwiches, which we don't have here in the States. Tandoori chicken subs, potato bites. I mean, all these
Ooh,
great things that I would
sounds
love to.
good.
And I just translated something today. I didn't translate it, but it was from French to English, and so I proofread it. And we have a raclette sub in France, which I mean, oh God, I would love to try that. Um, but it's whatever resonates with that market. So we're constantly innovating in each market, testing products to see what our guests want. But they're very different between the markets because not everyone wants to eat a turkey sandwich like here in the States.
Right, right. That makes sense. And the cool thing is that when you go somewhere else, you can go and try the Subway there and see what they have to offer.
Every
That's
country
like a
I've been in, I try Subway. I was in China, and Subway had just opened in China. This was a long time ago, and I ate there before I even worked there. And where did I? Oh, Canada. I mean, Canada's, just to the north of
not too
us,
far.
and they have
Yeah.
completely different sandwiches than we do. They have
Wow.
panini melts, so they like,
Ooh,
oh God, they put cheese on it and they, put it in that panini press, and oh, it's so good. And
yum.
we don't have
Sounds
that here.
amazing. Awesome. That sounds amazing. Okay, so thank you, Carrie, for sharing all those great insights. We can move on to our rapid fire round.
Okay.
So no pressure. Okay, so we'll start easy. What's your favorite language?
Français.
Ah, français. Okay, and your favorite yeah, I see the picture. And your favorite localization tool?
Uh, people. People create the tools that make us successful.
Amen. And your favorite place you've traveled to?
Greece. Beautiful.
Ooh,
Nothing like it.
I just went there for the first time.
Oh,
Uh,
love
yeah,
it.
it's very beautiful. Best localization advice you've received?
Make sure to keep track of your successes because no one else will.
Ooh. And the most successful market you've invested in?
I mean, if we're talking about Subway, all of them.
That's awesome. Okay, and what's your localization nightmare?
It already happened. It's called COVID. Uh,
Mm.
working the crazy hours, 14-hour days plus weekends, pretty much put me over the edge. So let's hope that doesn't
Oof.
happen again.
Yeah, wow. Sounds like a real nightmare. Um, and, and who's your localization role model?
I admire anyone who continues their education, either formally,
Mm.
um, through certifications, taking on projects or roles they don't think they're ready for.
Mm.
Anyone who volunteers in any organization, those people are my role models.
And which brand is your localization crush? This can be any company's localization you admire.
And it was a company I worked for, and that was Oracle. Um,
Mm.
when they acquired us in 2007, I was in absolute awe of how they operated their Worldwide Product Translation Group, or WPTG. We were unofficially called the factory within
Wow.
Oracle, um, because the processes that we had to put in place, not we, that they had to put in place to manage the sheer volume was truly impressive.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Okay, so that was it. That was the rapid fire. And
I
so
survived.
before we go, is there any are there any localization projects that you have coming up the Subway that we should look out for? Anything, or maybe, yeah, I don't know if there's anything localization you want to share.
Well, Subway, I mean, if you live in North America, Puerto Rico, or Finland, you've already experienced our awesome new rewards program, translated. And
Nice.
we're launching new markets next year, so the UK, Ireland, and Germany. So if you're a Subway fan,
Wow.
it's worth signing up.
Awesome. That's great. Cool, Carrie. It was so lovely speaking with you. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience, Subway and beyond, and just it's great to hear more about localization and from your perspective after so long in the industry, and clearly know what you're doing. So thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.